Of travelers are furious about the new trend in some hotel bathrooms, barn doors and glass walls, and absolutely no privacy in sight. So our nightcap question tonight is, what other hotel feature should be banned? Bill.
Any drinkware that is not disposable. No coffee mugs, no glassware, gross. Easy call.
Unclear if they get actually washed.
Exactly.
Wash them yourself.
Yeah. Asia?
For me, it's the envelopes in which you put the tip for the cleaning staff. That should just be included in your fee. The times are tough right now, my friends. Add it to the bill. Leave yourself a tip for your cleaning staff. It matters.
Throw pillows on the beds because they're never cleaned. And I don't want to know what happens in certain instances where someone arrives at the hotel and decides to utilize the bed. And those throw pillows on the bed are not being cleaned ever.
The worst arrived.
I'm getting chills.
Yeah, gross.
Noted. Well, to add on to that, the remotes and the phones.
Yes, you have to wipe those off.
Setting a theme here.
Studies show that they are the most filthiest component beyond your cups because they are most used but never really cleaned, and they also attract things when people come into the room and don't take
After
the time.
they've been on the throw pillows.
Yes. So everything just dries.
Bizarrely shaped bathtubs. Nobody needs a bathtub unless you've had your kidney removed and they're putting you in a tub of ice. Straight to hotel jail. Dim lights that you can't find the switch for.
Oh, so agree.
Fair.
Straight to hotel jail. And finally, closets that contain safes and ironing boards where you can't hang up your clothes. How am I supposed to hang my jacket up in there with your harpsichord sitting there? I don't need that. Give me a closet with nothing in it. All of these things.
All right.
Straight to hotel jail.
You don't iron as soon as you arrive at the hotel?
The airing of grievances has
He doesn't
concluded,
bathe
everyone.
either,
Thank you very
apparently.
much. Thanks for watching Newsnight. Laura Coates Live starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Laura Coates. Nancy Guthrie's family is waiting. They are hoping for any sign, any word that she is safe. The first deadline from unverified ransom notes sent to multiple media outlets that has now passed. The FBI confirmed in a news conference today it was set for 5 o'clock. And right after that time passed, Savannah Guthrie's brother Cameron issued this plea.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
It was just last night that Nancy's children released their first message asking for proof of life. And now we have some context as to why they're putting out these videos. TMZ got one of the ransom notes, and RB11, TMZ's founder, is revealing new information about what it says.
The letter says, you will have no way of contacting me. This is the only contact. So that's why they're pleading for proof of life. That's why they are begging, because they have no idea how to get in touch with this person.
We also now know why these notes are getting so much attention, even though law enforcement still isn't publicly confirming if they're even legit. It has to do with what they say about specific items at Nancy Guthrie's home.
They do mention an Apple Watch, as the FBI said, and they do mention the floodlight, the damaged floodlight. There is something else, and it is the placement of the Apple Watch, which has not come out. And if that placement is accurate, I'm sure that is something that puts this letter on the FBI's radar.
And that second deadline I mentioned, the FBI says the second deadline is Monday. And RB11 tells us the note indicates that that deadline is much more consequential. Police insist they still have no suspect or person of interest, but we did learn this. The blood that was found on Guthrie's front porch belongs to her. And the timeline of what happened is getting clearer. Guthrie took an Uber from her house to her daughter's home at about 5:32 p.m. on Saturday. She was dropped off back at her house at 9:48. Now, fast forward 4 hours, and we're at 1:47 a.m. on Sunday. The doorbell camera disconnects, a doorbell camera that's now missing. The camera software detected a person on camera at 2:12 a.m., but the software didn't retain the footage. And at 2:28 a.m., Guthrie's pacemaker app, it lost connection to her phone. And it was just before noon when her family got home and went to her home and reported her missing. So here's where we are. There's no suspect. There's no proof of life. No indication whoever took her will make contact again. And about 4 days until the second, more consequential deadline. And remember the urgency here, because Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old and has now been 5 days without her medication. The sheriff says the reward for information that gets her back is now $50,000. And he urges for help, but also for hope.
People are always asking, do I believe she's alive? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing to say she isn't. And so we have to live on that.
Tonight, we have a team of reporters, law enforcement experts covering every new aspect of this case. And believe me, there are many. We begin with Brianna Whitney, who was outside the Pima County Sheriff's Department tonight. It was actually at the news conference earlier today. She is a reporter with Arizona's 3 TV and CBS 5 and host of True Crime Arizona Live. Brianna, you were the one who asked that very key question that got the FBI to reveal that there were actually deadlines listed in the ransom letter. So tell me, what is your understanding of how law enforcement is evaluating the contents of the letter tonight, especially since that deadline is now passed?
Yeah, it was really, really important that we got that piece of information, because that's going to tell us really how they're going forward with deeming whether this ransom note is legit or not. So eventually the FBI special agent in charge said the first deadline tonight at 5 p.m. We know that that has since passed, and it was right after it passed that Savannah Guthrie posted another video with her brother this time, pleading with the abductor to come forward and contact them with more information. We know that the second deadline is sometime on Monday, but the FBI didn't go into detail at what time that is and what more of a demand the person is making. They did say it is very unusual that by this point in time, if they receive a ransom note, that they wouldn't have had any contact with the kidnapper or the abductor or any sense of communication with them. This is really odd. And so if Monday passes and there still is no communication, still no proof of life, then I think that's when the FBI will look at, is this credible? Probably and possibly not.
That's a big gamble if you're the family to think about all those factors. And one of the big questions that we had when we last spoke just last night was, why was there so much new activity at the home yesterday? What have you been able to learn?
Yeah, and that's something that I asked the sheriff today, too, because we were all wondering that. They had seemingly processed the scene. He had told us that. And then all of a sudden, you had crime tape going back up and you had agents bringing out new pieces of evidence. So I asked him, was there something specific that made you guys go back out there? Did you get a new tip or a new lead and you needed to go investigate inside the home again? He said, for the most part, they obviously want to make sure that they got everything. But because there's so many agencies that are part of this investigation, including the FBI wanted to then go into the house and see everything based on what they know at this point in the investigation. Now, he didn't go into detail as to what exact evidence was taken out of the home. We can assume that whatever was taken out, they're doing possibly DNA testing on. They're looking at, any sort of evidence that they could get from that. But when asked about, well, why did you close down the scene and allow family and media and neighbors to walk up to the door and walk all over there and then, have it be, for lack of a better word, a crime scene again? He said Monday morning quarterback. Yeah, the sheriff's department should not have opened that scene back up. They probably should have kept it secure, because you do have other agencies coming in who want to see for themselves what's in there. And if there's other evidence to be collected, they want to be able to do so. But I asked the sheriff, I said, so you could have a contamination of the scene then now? And he said, we'll leave that up to the courts to decide.
Brianna Whitney, now a Monday deadline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to former Navy SEAL commander and hostage working group coordinator for the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, Dan O'Shea, also former NYPD hostage negotiator, Wally Zines. Glad to have both of you here because, Wally, I want to get your read on these two deadlines in the alleged ransom note. Why do you think they gave these two separate deadlines, spaced several days apart?
Well, you got to understand first important thing in any hostage negotiation, you have to have another person to talk to. You have to have the good guy and the bad guy. And if you don't have another person to talk to, you have no negotiating going on. And that's one of the problems you have here. And when you talk about deadlines, you can bring up the point to them is that, hey, you want Bitcoins. We have to go get Bitcoins. We have to do this in relationship to work with a bank. We have to work with having it have two people. You can't just be talking to yourself. And that's the way that works. In relationship to the crime scene, what you mentioned, it's very common to go back to a crime scene. Mm-hmm. We always expand a crime scene when we get more information and more evidence to follow through. So that's something that is a common practice. In relationship to that crime scene,
sure.
They should always keep it taped off. And one of the other things in relationship to that is anyone who walks into that crime scene now, we always take their name, their shield, and what command they come from. So we have a steady roster of everyone that's coming into that particular area.
I'm sure that becomes an interview list at some point in time, too. Dan, I want to pick up on this idea of the ransom notes in particular, and the idea of, look, you can't negotiate with yourself, but I do wonder if that's precisely the point here, because Savannah Guthrie's brother, Cameron, appeared in the new video message tonight, asking for the abductor or abductors to reach out because the note has no contact information. The way that Wally's describing it is a question of leverage, right? You have no leverage to negotiate if the person will not communicate with you. Is that the precise motivation of the person who's asking for the money?
Well, as was pointed out by my colleague previously, you need two people to be talking to make a deal. Right now, the ransom demands have gone to media networks. There hasn't been a direct correlation. There hasn't been a proof of life provided by the kidnappers, proving they actually have Mrs. Guthrie in custody, that she's still alive, and that she's still good. And that's where we have the point that, are they really motivated by money? I think there may be to the point that they're ideologically driven. They're consuming the media that's driven on this case with the deadlines, with the focus of the U.S. president, with the head of the FBI. The entire nation is focused on this case, but they are not acting in good faith in doing this negotiation. So you have to wonder, what do these deadlines really mean? Are they just ratcheting it up for the news media focus, or are they really trying to make a deal to get Miss Guthrie home to her family?
You have to wonder about that. A third way to look at it, though, is that they want a purely transactional connection here, and they have no interest in being persuaded, which tells me maybe a different sort of criminal profile that we'll look at later on in the show as well. Wally, TMZ's Harvey Levin says that the ransom note included something that has not been publicly reported yet, the placement, apparently, of Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch. Does that make the letter appear to be more legit in your view, if there is something specific that they can chew over in law enforcement?
Well, that's very important. When you talk to the individuals, if you ever get that conversation where you start to negotiate, first of all, the negotiation starts off, as mentioned, they want to see if Nancy is still alive, or they want to have some indication that she is there. And, keep in mind one thing, AI is a big product now that we have a lot of dealings to deal with. I mean, they can take a voice and put it in AI. They can make a picture and make it move like a movie in AI, but you have to be able to beat that system too. So if they did do something like that, you would want to have some sort of indication like, tell me, what's my mom's password in case she has a problem? Or what did she get us for Christmas 3 years ago? That would throw AI off right away. But in relationship to the contacts, what's going on inside, you have to look at the letter that was sent or the email that was sent, and you have to go with the premise that it is real until you can disprove it. And that's a very important part of the whole case. There are little things that come in there that no one else knows about, and they will come and bring that specific thing up if they have in fact found something that has to do with the letter and inside the residence
Yeah,
of
it certainly
Nancy.
explains why law enforcement would want to be a little bit tight-lipped, Dan, about what they're releasing to the public, so they could confirm different details like that, as opposed to giving everyone the whole enchilada, so to speak. But let me ask you, Dan, how do you get someone to communicate in this situation who is not offered a way to communicate, who is not followed up, who is not providing proof of life? Is there a way to draw them to the table?
Well, again, I believe that they're violating the rules of how this business is played. If it's truly a kidnap for ransom, they're going to negotiate. It's just like every major deal. You do things behind the door to get the deal on the other side, and you make concessions, but you don't want to publicly admit to what you did. And the fact that they're not showing good faith, doctors are not acting in good faith, and that's where I think the focus needs to be. They're not playing by the traditional rules of kidnap for ransom. And you need to look at what ransom, and you need to look at what are the real motivations. Is it ransom or is it something else?
You have to wonder. I'm glad TMZ at least has something to work with for the family, and hopefully they're going to be able to move the needle. Dan O'Shea, Wally Zines, thank you so much. I want to get to criminologist now and behavioral analyst Casey Jordan, because Casey, the nation's been riveted by this, trying to figure out whether they're going to be able to move the needle. Dan O'Shea, Wally Zines, thank you so much. I want to get to criminologist now and behavioral analyst Casey Jordan, because Casey, or people, what does that tell you about the kind of person who would have done this?
Whoever is responsible for this, and it's more likely to be at least a pair of people than a singleton. It could even be a group, as Wally pointed out. But
why?
They're operating from a position of power right now. And some of that could just be like smoke and mirrors, if you will. So we look at the motive. Okay, first of all, they have opportunity and they have the skill to do it. But the skill set for somebody who abducts would usually be different than the skill set for a cyber criminal who's all interested in the Bitcoin. This could all be wrapped up in one person, but more likely a team. The power comes
well, hold
from
on, Casey, tell me for a second, what the difference between somebody who would be a cyber criminal versus somebody who would be an in-person abductor? What is the distinction?
Okay, it's not impossible for them to be the same person, but generally you are going to have at least one person to abductors, somebody to drive the car, somebody to be in charge of the communications, somebody who knows how to get that Bitcoin transferred is usually not the same person who muscles an 84-year-old lady into a car. And it just is easier when you have kind of a division of labor. But I mean, the bottom line is they're operating from a position of power that they don't really have because they haven't provided proof of life. And that alarms me a little bit because they may have started from a position of power where they had Nancy alive. And if that is no longer the case and they can't provide that proof, they have some choices. They can bluff their way and hope that the family pays money without proof of life, or they can just abandon the entire catastrophe and go off into the sunset because communication greatly ups the ante of them getting caught. And they know that. So at this point, number one, we're not 100% certain that this ransom demand is legitimate. They could just be really good at guessing and that art of probability. It's clearly enough to make the police believe it's legitimate. But, you know, who knows where the Apple Watch was? Let's try on the nightstand. I mean, at some point, it could just be an opportunistic person, a hoax, who is just clutching at straws and getting lucky. And it could be the true abductors. But if they are out there and we are dealing with that communication, and with that, we have Savannah's video last night and her brother's video today, we should hear from them. If they are profit motivated, they are going to get in touch. But if they do that after saying, this is the last time you will hear from us, then that gives the Guthrie family and the police the upper hand. So right now it's just a chess game.
Unbelievable to think about how a family copes with something like this. The idea of the gamesmanship when your loved one's life is on the line. The ransom letter, where it was sent, is really perplexing to many people. You just heard one of our hostage negotiators, experts, talking about it being sent to local outlets, sent to TMZ, not directly to the Guthrie family or even Savannah Guthrie's employer, right? She's a very visible person. You know where she works. I would assume one would go to there, but it seemed not to have. What does that tell you?
It seems not to have, and yet it's possible they tried and that email got lost in the hundreds of thousands of emails that probably came through to NBC when this happened. I'm not 100% convinced that they didn't try. It would be kind of hard to get directly through to Savannah unless you have her direct email to start with. You'd be going through other channels. And if that it isn't, I mean, it was 3 days before this surfaced. It makes me wonder if they did attempt, but for whatever reason, that attempt to reach the family failed. And then they went with the news outlets as plan B. But it does not really fit with all of the other sophistication they've demonstrated. I mean, let's admit, they're succeeding so far. No footprints, no tire tracks, no video. They got that Ring camera off. I mean, this is why I think they have some division of labor and maybe some people on the team are falling down.
Certainly reconnaissance at the very least in advance. Casey Jordan, thank you so much.
Good to be here.
Up next, millions in Bitcoin. That's apparently what the ransom note is demanding. A demand that would make